Hey everyone, George here with Wine Industry Network. Welcome to another edition of our Win Insider series, which if you've seen a few of these before, it's just a chance for us to get to meet different people in the industry who do different things. They have different perspectives on some of the things that we're going through, but mostly it's just a lot of fun for me to either meet new people or connect with people that I have known for a while, like our guest today, Drea Helfer, who is the CEO of DH Wine Compliance. So Drea, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So I'm super excited about this one because we've known each other for a long time. I think I started Wine Industry Network right about the time when you kind of went off on your own. And so it's been, I think, fun for me. And I think you've said sometimes to me, like, hey, it's been fun for you to kind of see how we both have sort of evolved over the last, I guess, it's like 15 years or so. When did you start DH Wine Compliance?
So DH Wine Compliance just celebrated its 15th anniversary in January. Yeah. And then you and I met originally when I was pregnant with my twins, and they will be 16 in just a couple of weeks. So, I did DH Wine Compliance, and then I think I was a few years in when you started Win. So probably, it has to. Goodness, I haven't aged. So I just want that to be on record.
I was thinking about that too. Like, I feel like it was the first time we met was at your house, like you were running the business at your house. And I don't know if I was doing some video marketing at the time. I can't even remember what got us together. I just remember you were doing your thing, man. And here you are. So pretty cool. Yeah. So I thought this would be really interesting to talk really kind of focus on your business and your journey. Because I think a lot of people who watch these are other people who are in the wine industry space that are starting a business kind of on more on the vendor side of things. So I want to go back to the beginning. So what were you doing when you first started doing compliance?
So I have a very unorthodox way in which I got into this. I grew up riding and training horses, so certainly a little ways from the wine industry, and moved away and then came back and was no longer riding horses, worked in an office at an importer. They also did marketing, and they sent me to a compliance class. Okay. And I took the compliance class. I think I went to UC Davis and sat down, and it was this binder about this thick, with all of these rules and regulations. And there was something about it that I just fell in love with and really enjoyed hearing all the information. So I walked up to the instructor and asked where I could learn more. And she said, come and work for me. So that was the first compliance firm that I worked for. And then I moved to another compliance firm. And then in 2010 started DH Wine Compliance. So I don't have a background in the wine industry. I don't, never worked in a winery, which tends to be kind of the traditional place where people will start doing compliance. Is they're working at a winery, maybe they work in the tasting room or they're in marketing, and then they kind of stumble upon compliance. Mine was a really kind of roundabout way that I ended up in the industry. And it's been really interesting because I've seen the industry at a distance, right? Compliance is not entrenched in everything. We're not involved in events. We kind of stay on the outside. And I've noticed that with most compliance people, we kind of are, a lot of us tend to sort of maybe be a little bit introverted. So we're not, going to all the wine tasting, we're not sitting in the tasting room and meeting people. We kind of just operate on the background.
Did you like was it just like that it was very structured? Because I think a lot of people are intimidated with compliance because it's, you've got to follow, there's a sequence of steps. There's a right way to do things, and then there's every other way of doing things, right? So did you like that structure? Is that sort of natural for just like the way your brain works?
I think it's the structure. I think it's the detail. I love details, which is very strange. Most people don't like the details, right? They really want to have more of the creative aspect of things. But it was the details of where sitting and looking at this enormous binder in one state, these were the rules, and in a different state, these were the rules. And there may be some similarities, but then, there's things that are so completely different, and there's not a whole lot of rhyme or reason. So it becomes a bit of a puzzle, right? And the way when I talk to people about compliance, there is no exact framework that someone has to follow because the business is different, the products are different, the licensing is different. So it's like taking that puzzle piece and just turning it until it fits. And each customer that we work with is a little bit of a different puzzle piece. So I think in looking at that binder with all of those regulations, I started to just kind of realize that that's what what I was kind of getting myself into. I've also just really always loved organization, and compliance is really, that's kind of the foundation of compliance, is organization and project management.
So when you decided, hey, I'm going to go off on my own, and I remember, so I was thinking back, in advance of this and kind of doing my prep work, that I knew you were pregnant and you had been working for a compliance company, but now all of a sudden you weren't working for a compliance company. I couldn't remember it was because, and I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but what was it that you said, you know what, I'm going to do my own thing?
That's a really good question. Part of it was, so when we met, I was working at one of the compliance firms and I was pregnant, and then I had my twins, and then I started DH Wine Compliance. I really just wasn't a fan. I'm trying to be very diplomatic here, a fan of the level of service that was being offered. I, prior to riding horses and also during riding horses, worked in restaurants, and some of the restaurants I worked in were very high end, and service was, it's number one, right? The customer is number one, how the customer is treated, how you communicate with the customer. Having to, when you're in a high-end restaurant, and high-end meaning like they were doing winemaker dinners before winemaker dinners were a thing. Like Margaret Duckhorn was there. I didn't know who she was, what it meant, but it was really that kind of level. Robert Redford was there. Like these were elite people. If the food is not ready, you don't just pretend that it's not ready. You need to go and explain to them what it is that's going on. We've had an issue in the kitchen, or can we get you something else in the meantime? That level of service. And when I was working at the compliance firms, that wasn't really what was being taught. And that wasn't the philosophy within the company in terms of how to service clients. So it kind of went against my own personal sort of like morals when it came to work. So I knew that I could do a better job. I didn't know exactly what I was doing. In fact, I probably had no idea what I was doing at the time, but I just said, you know what, I think I can do a better job service-wise. I think I can have a reputation for providing a really great service, and it's worked out really well. I would say that that's really the greatest thing about DH Wine Compliance, and the biggest piece of feedback that we get. Yes, we provide good compliance. Yes, we give accurate information, but the service is what and why people stay, and why we have such a great reputation, is because we will service you. We will call you back. If we can't get something done, we're going to at least tell you, hey, we're running behind, or we need more time, or there's this problem, what have you. So there's a lot of communication back and forth. I think that's unfortunately sometimes the pitfall that people find with other compliance firms.
It's funny. I completely agree with your sort of philosophy on like the customer service piece of it, and listening, and you talk about waiting tables. I waited tables like when I was in college, and even when I first got in the wine industry. And I think everybody should wait tables. I think everybody should know what it's like to go out and wait on people. If you get good at it, you'll never be hungry, right? You can always go back to waiting tables no matter what. You can always make a little bit of money. But I think it's such a great lesson in being able to adjust based on the people that you're dealing with, right? Because like in your particular case, you deal with a lot of different personalities, a lot of big personalities. And so you've got to make accommodations for that. It's not just all about you. And I think having that flexibility is really important. And so that came through loud and clear. And just like I said, letting people like know that they are important, and over communicating. And the other thing you said that I thought was really interesting, and I think this is good advice for anybody who's going out to start, to chase one of their own dreams of being self-employed, is it's okay if you don't really know exactly how it's going to work out or exactly what you do. Because I think that when that sort of thinking of like needing to figure out every little thing you should be doing so you do it right, a lot of ways it just makes you not do it, and it's just harder than you think, but you wind up figuring out if you have that kind of personality. But knowing that what you know now, I know, like, I look back on some of the things that I've done and go, oh my God, I don't even know what I was thinking. Like, why? How did that? I must have been crazy, but you figure it out.
Yeah.
So early on, what were some of if you could think back, like, what were some of the biggest challenges for you as you said, okay, I'm off, I'm going to do my own thing?
So I really felt strongly about the fact that I didn't want to pursue clients that I knew were at my former employers. So I spent a lot of time combing the internet, wine business, what have you, and reading press releases and contacting people in that way. I'm by nature a shy person, even though people are usually shocked to kind of hear that. But I really wish that I had gone to more events and had, more face-to-face contact with people. The wine industry, and I think maybe just alcohol in general, is very much a personable type of industry. And so having those connections with people is definitely something that's really, really important. Again, I was shy, so it was very difficult for me to do those types of things, but that would be something that I feel like, God, I really wish I would have spent more time on that part, because I think that would have gotten the wheels going a little bit faster.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge was and still is really finding staff. Compliance is not something that people are going to school for. Again, they're falling on it a little bit like I did, where you just kind of end up in it. So it can be difficult to find people that have experience. And if they have experience and they found a location, they enjoy working at the winery, you're not going to be able to easily pry them away. So we end up having to train individuals. Some have some industry experience or maybe even a little bit of compliance experience, but there's many people we hire that don't even know the difference between red and white wine. And so it's a very long learning curve of teaching them about a little bit about wine and then about how the industry works. And then on top of that, all the rules and regulations that go with compliance. But we have a really great group here. But I mean, today, there's interviews going on to try to hire someone to fill for a position that we have. And it's just difficult. There aren't many compliance people out there. And it takes a special, not just personality, but I would say probably learning style and brain that is really going to love doing compliance. You either love it or you hate it. There isn't a whole lot of in between. And people either get it within the first 3 months or they don't get it at all. So we certainly spend a lot of time, trying to find people that are going to be the right fit.
Well, full disclosure to people that are watching this. So I'm also partners on a small brand, and Drea's team that's our compliance team there. And you do have a great team there. I mean, everyone's incredibly helpful. And I've been working with you for, I started that in 2008. I think I did my initial licensing, and then I was like, I just can't. I need help. But you're doing something right, because you've got good people. They've been with you for a while. You and the North Bay Business Journal, you've been one of the best places to work for like 10 or 11 years in a row, which is not an insignificant thing. What do you attribute that to? What are you doing differently than, say, well, that's a hard question, but what are you doing, do you think, that really kind of lends itself to making it a great place for people to work, that want to work there and stick with you?
I mean, at the risk of sounding like not very, I honestly, I'm not really sure what it is that we do, because to me, what we do is just what should be done, which is take care of people and value them and make them feel seen and heard and appreciated. We have a great culture here that really is very helpful. It's not judgmental. For a long time, it was a staff of all women, which people would sort of, they'd be a little bit shocked by it, because they would have thought, well, there must just be a lot of drama, but there really isn't any. I don't think it's hard to take good care of people. I think it's, as I said, it's appreciating people. It's letting them feel like they have a place here, that their opinion matters. Yes, we pay them well. Yes, they have good benefits. Yes, we have fun. We do a lot of team building things around food. It's a potluck. It's, we bring in lunch, what have you. We just had a wonderful anniversary party where everyone was invited with their plus ones. But, just like I said, I just don't think it's really that hard. For me, I never want to forget what it's like to be an employee. I never want to forget what it's like to have my destiny in someone else's hands. So I always have that in the back of my mind, is what can I be doing better as an owner, as their boss, to make them feel like this is the only place they want to be. And some of those things are very, very small. There's a meme going around the internet that I've been talking about lately, where it's like, you guys have been working really hard. Here's a pizza. And that's not really what people want. They don't necessarily want just a pizza. They want to feel like they matter. They want to feel like this is a place where they're doing a good job and it's being acknowledged. And like I said, I just don't think that's really that difficult.
Did you sort of that style, did that just sort of evolve naturally from within, or do you have like mentors, or have you taken classes or the things that you listen to that you think have helped you be a better owner, boss?
That's a good question. I don't necessarily have a mentor. I think my mentors, it's almost like whatever the opposite of a mentor would be. Like, if this is how you don't treat people. I didn't necessarily grow up in an environment where this was how it was. I think it probably just came to me. I mean, I've made many, many errors when it comes to having staff members and not treating them as, as I should or as I would in this day and age. Yeah, I don't know. That's a really good question. One I'll probably have to think on to see, but I mean, I just feel like it's probably just part of who I am as a person, which I take a lot of pride in taking good care of people and making sure that people know that I love them. I think that's really important.
How do you, so knowing that, and I know that about you, you definitely care. You care about the people that work for you. That's very clear just when I've been around you with people that work for you. Um, but how do you handle like the difficult conversations, especially let's say, I'll give you an example. And because I think all small business owners deal with this, right? Where you've got some people that have been with you for a while, they're key folks, but maybe you're not seeing things through the same lens, or you're noticing that there's a change and it needs to be addressed, which can be uncomfortable. Like, how do you deal with that?
So that's probably where I don't know that I have mentors, but where I have done some, reading and looked into, online things as far as how to handle it. I'm always very clear about what my expectation is from the very beginning of people showing, stepping their foot in the door of DHOI compliance. This is what I expect. And I don't really allow anything less than what that expectation is. And I think that's important, because if you do that, then you don't always have to have hard conversations. If you're setting the boundary of exactly, this is product that we provide, this is how we want it. If I want the paperclip in the left-hand corner, then that's where I want the paperclip. It doesn't get to go on the right. It has to go on the left.
Right.
So there's just a culture of like, this is the expectation. And when someone doesn't, when someone is putting the paperclip on the right-hand side, then it's a conversation. What is it that's making you think that that's where it should go? What tools can we offer to you, to understand things better? And then it's being very honest with people and just saying, like, this is going to be a hard conversation. What is happening is not working for us, and we want to make it work. And this is going to take a team, as a team, we're going to have to try to make this work. Yeah. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But, it's not comfortable, but I'm not also, whatever, averse to sort of the conflict, right? Because to me, it's not a conflict. I've given my expectation. I've said what it is that I want. We have very clear policies. And so it is what it is. And it doesn't have to be a big to-do. It's just very matter of fact.
Yeah, no, I think but it's challenging, right? So it's like you've got to do it. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, again, admittedly, like some of this is good for me too to hear. So I think other people who have small businesses, and it can be small wineries, as well. Just slipped to my mind for a second. Hold on a second. I'm gonna have to edit this out. Okay, back to it. You've got a pretty good sized staff there. When you start off your own business, it could be your own winery, whatever it is, you're very hands-on and you're in the middle of every single conversation. But as you grow, you can't be in the middle of every conversation. You become, the stumbling block. How have you dealt with maintaining those high standards, but not being involved in every conversation? Because I think you do a really good job delegating. It's been years since I don't call. If I have a question or anything, I'm not calling Drea anymore. I know if I have a big problem, I will call Drea. I've never had to do that. But how hard was it for you to kind of remove yourself from some of the details and some of those like more intimate conversations?
It might have been and might be the hardest thing to do, is to take that step back and to really trust that people are going to hold up those standards that you want. I think it's the same thing. It's setting that expectation of the leaders within the organization of exactly what I'm looking for. I also am very clear of like, this is what I care about. This is what I want to hear about. This is what I want to be involved in. And these are the things that it doesn't matter to me. Like, do what you like with it. I trust your judgment on it. fill me in when it's over, and let's move forward. And when I set that expectation, it allows the individual, the leader, to then have their own place to shine and take on their own responsibility and take pride in the fact that they made an important decision. It's not really something that Drea cares about, but I can own that. And then I think that then empowers them to really become great leaders. And that it makes it easier for me to then let go, because I can trust that that person made a decision about something that I really wasn't super invested in what the outcome was.
Yeah.
So they can be invested in that outcome. But it was really hard, and it took me a long time to do that. But as I started to do it, I just saw my team get stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
And then I got to take a breath, and I focused my energies in other places, and really see the elevation of the team. So now my big task is taking that layer of leadership that's underneath me and now empowering them to do the same thing, allowing their team to take ownership of things, to let them know what it is that you want to be involved in, that you need to be a part of, and allow them to do the other things on their own. And then they too will start to see that, rise up of people who are going to be leaders are going to rise to the top if you give them that opportunity. But it's not easy. And I think there's not a perfect way to do it. For our organization, that's what worked. I don't know that I would ever want to start another company, because there's so many learning curves in it. And I think each company is so different that you have to go through these hard things. You have to fail as a leader and, step on people's toes and micromanage a little bit. And then you kind of go, oh gosh, that's not what I should have done. And then learn from that experience and try to move forward.
No, I think that goes back to something that I was alluding to earlier. It's like, if you knew everything that you were going to have to deal with before you head down that path, you might not do it.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I think ignorance is a little bit bliss when it comes to like starting your own business. Because I couldn't do it all over again. Like, to start to go, hey, it's like, that's no way. I'm just exhausted. I think I'll just get a job. I have another question for you. And I think this is something that other people who are out there, especially people who are doing, type of consulting work as in particular, or just have clients that they work with on a regular basis. We're dealing with folks in the wine industry. I think one of the things about our industry is that it really attracts people who are unique thinkers. They're not followers. Especially people who've experienced some success in the wine industry, or oftentimes experienced success in other industries, and then they migrate into wine. A lot of egos, a lot of people who think they know everything, and a lot of good people, but some very difficult, some challenging people, right? Which makes our industry special. You deal with a lot of different clients. I'm not even going to ask you how many different winery clients or vineyard clients that you have, but I know you deal with just as many personalities. How have you? And I know you've come across things where you're like, they're not listening, or they're not paying, or they're just you can't work with them. How have you dealt with that?
Oh, that's my least favorite thing to have to deal with. And I think I'll say part of the reason why it's my least favorite is it's a very small industry. And so you want to be very careful that you aren't burning any bridges, or you aren't putting yourself in a situation where it's going to be my word against theirs, and you're not going to make some public declaration of like, this person is wrong and I was right. So it definitely has to be handled very, very diplomatically. I enjoy, again, it's that puzzle piece thing. So it's the same thing about compliance being a puzzle piece. I think staff members are puzzle pieces, and how do I get this person to work, in the way that I need them to? But I think with clients, it's a little bit like that too. It's just more challenging because they're paying me, right? So I have to be very careful in terms of like, how do I get this person to work with us? We've had plenty of situations where we've had really challenging personalities, and we've had to say, look, there seems to be a difference in personality here. We can suggest another firm for you to go and work with. Again, very awkward, not the conversation you want to have with someone, but it's out there. I would add to your statements around people in the industry. I think people fall in love with the wine industry for the romance of it, right? Yeah. It's this wonderful product. There's stories behind it. There's so much history. You have beautiful pieces of property, and everybody's sort of envisioning this business, right? And then they get into it and they're like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Right. So you get the creatives that come in that are, sort of an art type of mind. compliance is certainly not anything they care about. They're not into accounting. They don't care about point of sale systems, like any of the stuff that is really the business related pieces. And they forget that that's 90% of the business, and the romance is the 10%. I would say those are the hardest ones because their personality is to be creative. Their personality is to be a little bit disorganized, right? And they need to come in and be organized. You really can't change a leopard's spots in that instance. So those are the ones that I think are the hardest because you're really fighting against their instincts of how they want to go through the world. If we go back to the restaurant thing, there were plenty of instances in the restaurant where you had a customer that was not kind or had too much to drink or was rude. And my boss that was there, who owned the restaurant, she would not allow people to treat her staff badly. And she would ask somebody to leave and was just very matter of fact about it. Well, I don't allow people to treat my staff this way. They're doing their best. I apologize that you're not happy, but here is the door. So maybe at times that's what we've had to do when we've had some challenging situations with people. But I think hopefully, our reputation of all the good things and the good clients that we've had have overridden those instances where someone was maybe not as savory as others.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think that's just part of doing business is that sometimes you just have to go, I'm sorry, this is probably not going to work out. But then try to help them figure out where they can go, right?
Right.
I agree with it. I think that's a good message for anybody who's been in the industry for a while knows, that it's a small industry and that burning those bridges is just a bad idea because it will come back to haunt you. But I think it's good to remind people of that. You said something that made me think about technology, the technology impact on our industry. So when you were, first getting going, we had point of sale systems, but they were not nearly as sophisticated as they are now. They did not gather, with maybe a couple notable exceptions, they were not able to capture some of the data that make your job and compliance a little bit easier. Has technology really affected your business over the last 15 years or the change in technology?
So when I first got into compliance, states didn't really have a website. And if they did have a website, it didn't have any type of functionality of it where you would file reports. So we've seen, in the last, now I've been doing this for over 20 years, all states have websites and all states have something that you have to file or do online. So it's, in some ways, that's made our jobs easier because we now can leverage that technology instead of having a piece of paper that has to be signed and sent in. Now you could do that online, but that's added a layer of complexity to things when now we have a lot of this like MFA stuff and there's the encryption and you need a code that gets emailed. That has added some challenges to things as well. From a software perspective, there's so many different things that people can use. And I say things because it's, it's e-com, it's, point of sale system, it's the websites, it's wine tracking, fulfillment, any of those things. Are so many parts to it that we are enough on the outside of it that the implementation and the creation of those don't necessarily impact us. What we have not seen is a whole lot of compliance solutions. There is software that is out there that does handle compliance, but it's not, there's very few to pick from. We're actually working on a software to try to fulfill some of the need that is out there. It's still in a development phase, but we're working on that to see, but it's very complex. There's so many pieces that go into it that it makes sense as to why there aren't so many options. I really feel for the small wineries coming in because there isn't one piece of software to use. You're using maybe a couple of different ones, and the cost that goes into that is definitely has to be considered into all of the other costs that happens in the wine industry. Technology and compliance aren't really in the same vein with each other in terms of the technology is going really, really quickly, but compliance rules and regulations are still so far in the dark ages. I'm hopeful in the next couple of years, maybe even with AI, we'll start seeing more technology that will work for compliance, but it hasn't really impacted the business too much in that way.
Well, I did hear a little rumor about you working on a little technology project, so we'll be excited it'll be fun to talk about that when the time is right. I wanted to ask you, one of the other things I'll really rephrase it. it's very impressive for me about you, and we're friends on social media, so I see this, is you raised your kids while you were raising your business, and you did that at the same time. And again, it's blame on social media. We're friends. You attended all of their activities. I mean, you were a very hands-on mom and a very hands-on business owner. How did you balance that? Like, how did you just, I mean, that you had to be, there's no way you didn't have some tough decisions to make, but you did it. How did you do that?
Yeah, so I do. I have three kids. My daughter Demi will be 18 in March, and then I have twin boys that are 16, and they're all very active in sports. A lot of late nights of working, especially while I was building the business. I worked all the time, and at the time had a really supportive partner. So he was really great, and still to this day is wonderful, even though we're no longer married. I had a lot of help from friends, at least getting the kids to the games. I also have been in the car at games and, on my computer. But, I can't say that I don't think that having the kids and participating in that maybe held the business back a little bit. And would it have been bigger had I, been able to put more time into it? Yes. But I also know that time with my kids, I don't get back. Right. I can't go, they're only in high school for so long. They're only in middle school for so long. So I didn't want to miss out on that. And, to go back to what you asked about staff, that's really one of our big things here of our culture is, yes, you have a Christmas pageant or a Halloween parade, go to those things. Yesterday was the flooding here and people had to leave early to go get their kids from school. Go do that. Those are things that are very important to people to take care of their family. And I think, it is a sacrifice that you make. But again, in the end, you don't get that time back. Yeah. And I've personally had a lot of help. I have a really great assistant who helps me and friends. I have no regrets about the time that I had to take away from work to take care of my family. And I will forever be grateful the fact that I got that I got that opportunity and that I took that opportunity for myself. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy, and it still isn't easy as I've, still am running around from one field to the next.
Well, I think it's a good message that you can do it, and it doesn't have to be either or. Maybe you don't get the best of, you could have put more time in the business or you could have spent more time, with the kids. But I think there is a way to get it done and strike a balance, and to a degree have your cake and eat it too, right? So yeah, because you don't get that time back. It's kind of, I was using this example with the team we had a meeting today. I said, some of the things we do, it's like selling milk. Like if it doesn't get sold by Tuesday, it's like, we don't get done. And I think to the same degree, it's like, if you miss that game, it's over. You can watch a video, but it's not the same as being there. That was your daughter. Is she a senior this year, right? She
is a senior. Yeah.
I don't know if she has plans to go away, but that's my kids are a little bit older. So I kind of went through the phase of, oh, now they're going away to school, and that's a different trip. So are you nervous about that? Are you looking forward to that? Like, how do you feel?
I mean, I kind of don't want to talk about it, is what I say. She is a competitive softball player. She's going to Carroll College in Helena, Montana. She's a scholarship there to play softball for their softball team. So
congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, it's very, very exciting. I'm very proud of her. She's worked really hard. We've traveled a lot of miles to try to kind of get her into that position. I'm excited. I really am excited for the opportunities that she's going to have to be able to live outside of California, meet new people, see new things. But it's a different chapter of life. And it does make me wonder now, sort of like, as the kids get older and when they're all out of the house, what does that mean for me and the next step as a business owner? Am I going to throw myself into the business, now even more? Or am I going to take this as an opportunity to sort of say like, okay, what do the next 10 years look like? And, do I want to just kind of keep things as they are? I think I feel very fortunate to be in that position to have that choice. Knowing me, I probably will to go full into it. I'm still young and still have a lot of miles under me to really build the business even more. I would love to kind of, expand out and start servicing more areas. We primarily have California clients, so we'd love to be, in Oregon and Washington and maybe even in some other states to start, to sort of expanding our footprint.
Well, those college visits can be really fun. So they're going to be a good welcome distraction. And she's not going to be that far, with a quick little plane ride away, right? And you still have the boarding school for a couple of years, so that's all good. one of the other things that I think about when I was thinking about you is, again, social media, and I don't pretend to know who all your friends are, but I know you've got a group of friends that are smart women like yourself who own their own businesses or they're executive directors of, associations, some wine related, some not so much wine related. But it's like you've got this cool little peer group. That's got to be a bit of a support system too, like that they can relate to some of the challenges. Does that become like, does that, I know it's good for you socially, but does that help you professionally as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look up to these ladies so much. Not only are they really great business owners, but they're also good members of the community. And so, again, as a more shy person, it's helped me kind of come out of my shell and become maybe a little bit more social and bold in social situations. But it's nice to call someone and just be like, hey, like, I'm having a really bad day. This is really hard. And
Yeah.
just someone that's been there and that understands it. And, many of them have kids, so they get the balance part. They're in, they have relationships, they're married, so they get that the challenge of really, keeping all the burners on high. Like, how do we how do you balance all of that? I think that's really important, is to try to find sort of like a tribe of people that are within the same stage of life and the same season of life as you, so that you can have that support system to lean on when things are hard, but they're also there to celebrate with you when things are really great. They're there, like many of them were at the anniversary party that we had, and it was so nice because I've known them for so long, so they've seen the growth, and to support them through their life things too. It makes you feel a little bit less alone. Being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, you're on a little bit of an island, and you're also sort of at times probably put up on a pedestal that you don't really want to be on.
Yeah.
And so to have other people that can relate to that and not judge you, but just support you and kind of go like, yeah, I know it's really hard. It makes the hard a little less hard.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. I think, again, it's another good lesson for people out there that, may have a hard time asking for help. I struggled with that early on. I don't know if it was pride or whatever, but it's not something that I was good at. It's just like more comfortable just trying to figure it out on my own. But over the years, I've acquired a group like that as well that I feel good about calling. I don't feel embarrassed about saying like, what do you think about this? And because, I don't want to seem like a complainer or I'm feeling sorry for myself. And at the same time, it makes me feel good when people call me,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm sure you get those calls sometimes. And it's like, I've never had a problem like taking some time to tell somebody like about sharing experience I may have had if it helps them. It's kind of like a little club. I don't know. It's like a
Yeah.
little group that we belong to. It's some sort of a self-help group. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so I don't want to keep you too much longer. This has been really fun. But I do want to ask you a little bit about you get your perspective on the industry. So you have again, a unique perspective. You work with big wine companies, bigger wineries, small guys that are just getting started. Because of what you do have a perspective on like who's doing well or who's doing better than they did the year before and who's maybe not doing it as well as they were before. Are there any things that and again, there's no one right or wrong way to be successful in the wine industry. That's what's kind of
Mm-hmm.
cool about it. You mentioned Margaret Duckhart. I remember hearing early on, I took some classes at Sonoma State, and the whole class was structured around bringing successful people in to talk about what they did. And one of the guest speakers was Dan Duckhorn, and he took a very structured approach. Like they did their business and marketing plan. They had very strict budgets, and it was a real process that took them down the path of success. And in another class we had Mike Benzinger, and you couldn't be more opposite, right? Equally very successful, but he was like, yeah, we just sort of went out there, we just sort of figured it out as we go, and we did not have strict anything, but we trusted our instincts. Um, that aside, are there some common? Do you see some things that some of the wineries that have experienced success during these challenging times that they have in common? And maybe a follow up to that, some of like the brands that you work with that are really struggling, that what they're not doing or what they have in common.
Hmm. So I think the people that have survived, I would say, which is sad to have to say that, are the ones that have pivoted in some way. It's pivot. And it's kind of like, to me, it's a little bit of an annoying word because it's so kind of obvious, but it really is what has happened. They've pivoted as far as, how they're marketing. They've pivoted as far as how their offerings that they have. Maybe they're bringing in new products. Maybe they're taking advantage of their skill set that they have and now doing custom products for other people. Those are the businesses that have done well and continue to do well. The ones that just kind of stay on the same track and haven't thought outside the box, or thought outside the box but the idea didn't work, those are the ones that are definitely struggling. Regardless of the time of the industry that we're in, the story is the biggest thing, right? It's the romance that people they want to identify with the brand. They want to identify with the human behind the brand. And I think some people just do that better than others. I will say, I think COVID was just a really good tipping point for some people where they just were kind of right on the edge of making it anyways. And then COVID happened and they kind of just said, we're done. Yeah. So we have seen a number of brands that have either sold or have just closed down as a result of just kind of calling it a day. But we've also, as I said, we've seen other companies that have just embraced the pivot and did really, really well. It's a tricky industry for a lot of different reasons, because there's no one way, like you said, to do it. There's no one way to market. There's no one story to have. I think obviously the news plays into things a lot. I'm curious to see what will happen with this whole sort of California sober curious thing, if that's gonna continue to have traction. Obviously, at the risk of getting political, like tariffs might change things as well. Yeah. So it's are people going to be able to pivot through those things also? And how are they going to market products differently if these continue to be hurdles that they have to overcome? It's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm glad I'm not in this side of the industry of having to make and to sell wine, or to do any type of agricultural stuff with, crazy weather. But, I don't think we're ever going to go back to the days of like just regular old wine. People show up at a tasting room and they order wine. There's going to need to be some real creative marketing pieces to get people to get back into drinking wine, to get back into falling in love with the romance of what the wine industry is.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that for the one thing, the piece of advice that I've been given to people when they come, because we have an opportunity to work with a lot of different brands as well, both on the winery and on the supplier side, is like, you got to be willing to do things different. You've got to be willing to change, and then change again, and then change again if it's not working. You said something early on about some of the people that jump into this industry. Generally speaking, I don't think they have any kind of an idea of how challenging it is. It is very hard. It's like, it doesn't matter. Of course, you have to have a good product. Of course, you've got to price it reasonably. You got to be in the somewhere in the realm of reality of what people are willing to pay for a bottle of wine. But mainly you got to be willing to work really hard.
Yeah.
And you've got to get out there and hustle and be selling all the time. And if you don't want to do that, if that's not for you, I tell people, go join like 10 wine clubs, go to 10 blending parties. You know what I mean? Go crush a ton of grapes with some friends, you'll get it out of you. You can be creative. But you can get some of that stuff out of your system, but it is not an easy business, and it's not going to get any easier for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I agree. It's also just a very expensive industry when you think about, a barrel is $1,000, right? And I'm not a winemaker, but you aren't using that for the next 10 years, right? So just the investment, the sort of like, the path to market is really expensive, and compliance is expensive. And it definitely is not for the faint of heart. And I think, tenacity is something you have to have in this industry. And I think you have to have that tenacity no matter what aspect you're in. If you're in accounting, if you're in, building stainless steel tanks, if you're in marketing, if you're in branding, whatever it may be, like, because the industry is so dynamic and there's so many parts of it, you constantly have to be trying different things and not giving up and, giving it a second try or, and kind of knowing when to make those adjustments. I think those are the people that have really succeeded well, is they just have a good feel for the industry and for business, that they know, hey, this is the time to throw in the towel, or this is the time for us to, try something different.
At the risk of sounding like an eternal optimist, if I was going to maybe use a kind of a metaphor for what we're going through, I think for people as just people, sometimes the things that we go through that are not so great, when you're in the middle of it, whether it's, a relationship that may be falling apart or whatever challenge you may be facing, maybe it's something with your career. Oftentimes this seems like the very worst day of your life or the very worst period of your life, but oftentimes it triggers something that heads you down a path that when you look back on it, you kind of go, you know what, that was awful, but if I didn't experience that, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I think that for our industry, what we're dealing with right now and have been dealing with, it's driving innovation, right? It's causing us to think a little bit differently in how we, what we do on a day-to-day basis, how we communicate with our consumer. I think it's been a real eye-opener for us to say, hey, what we're saying isn't working, especially when we talk a lot about how we connect with a younger consumer. Well, we better figure out how to do that. So we keep trying to do different things. And I think eventually we will figure it out. We will come out the other end. I think things will look a little bit different to your point. But I like to think that we'll look back at this period, this post-COVID period where it's super challenging and go, you know what, that actually turned out to be a really good thing. Because now look at us.
Right.
And we're much healthier. So anyway, I know it sounds very optimistic, but I'm going to keep thinking that. I'm going to hold on to that, Drea.
I agree. I'm right there with you. I think it's going to force, as you said, innovation. It's going to force pivoting. It's going to, force us to do that, because I think the industry kind of coasted along because everything was working, and there really wasn't a whole lot of upset. And now it's a big upset. And we're going to look back on this and realize, that was really hard, but we're so much stronger for it. And hopefully we'll learn. And so when we get back on track and things have leveled out again, we won't allow that complacency to set in anymore. We'll continue to innovate and continue to make adjustments as needed.
Well, as like you said, I think that the clients that you've seen who have experienced some success while this is going on or survived, at least survived, they were willing to do things different. They're going to be the only ones left. Right. So the only guys left are going to be the ones that are willing to do some things differently. Well, listen, I don't want to keep it too much longer, but I do want to ask you a couple of parting questions with regard to the business. So, regardless, and I want you to talk about DH for a second. For somebody who's maybe looking for, some compliance help, it doesn't matter to you how big they are or how small they are. Like, right? I mean, you've got clients of all sizes. For somebody who's interested in working with you guys, what should they do?
So, yes, we work with wineries, and actually we have cider producers, we have distilleries, we have breweries. Some of the people that have pivoted are now doing rectification of wine, which is a whole new world for me, but something that was really exciting to start. We have clients that are 50 cases and some that are, over 50,000 cases. So there really is not a limit to who we'll work with. Check out our website and, see our list of services. They can reach out to me directly. I'm sure you'll have contact information. And we are very clear on sort of where our boundaries of what we handle, because there are aspects that fall outside of compliance. So I always encourage people, come ask the question. If we can help you, let's chat about a scope of service. If it's not something that we can do, we'll hopefully be able to point you in the right direction and give you some leads on where you might be able to find the answers.
So go to the website. Is it DH Wine Compliance?
dhwinecompliance.com. Yep.
And then if they're interested, the next step is they can schedule a time to come in and speak with somebody on the team and learn a little bit more about how it works and figure out whether you're a good fit for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, we could discuss the project in detail, what their needs are. If they have a current compliance solution, what's not working for them, and how we might be able to fulfill and fill that gap. Well,
thank you so much for spending some time with me. It's been cool just to catch up a little bit because we don't usually get to do this. So it's kind of see each other in passing, quick hug.
Yeah.
But this has been really fun for me. And like I said, I'm a big fan. I think I love everything you've done. It's been fun watching you grow. Congratulations. You bought your first building.
We did. Yes, that's very exciting.
That's very cool.
We have our own official home. We'll be moving sometime mid this year, so we're looking forward to that, and make things fully official here at DH Wine Company.
Is it close to where your office has been, or is it? Am I going to have to drive a lot farther now if I want to come visit you guys?
Now we're in downtown Windsor.
Okay,
so
cool.
A little bit closer for you to Healdsburg, not far from the office here. I'm excited. I've lived in Windsor since 2005, so I'm excited to be like an official Windsor business owner. That's really exciting for me.
Well, I'm excited for you. Congratulations
Thank you.
again. And thanks for everybody who was watching today. Hope you enjoyed today's Insider series. And if you liked it, go ahead and like our YouTube channel. We'll keep you posted on ones that come up in the future.